UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon and US Secretary of State John Kerry are in the Middle East in an effort to broker a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. The mission comes on the heels of the bloodiest day in the conflict. At least 120 Palestinians were killed in one Gaza town on Sunday, a third of them women and children, bringing the Palestinian death toll to more than 560 since the battle began. For the Israelis, around 30 soldiers have now been killed in separate incidents, the heaviest loss of life for the Israeli military in years. And the violence rages on, with Israel saying it killed 10 Palestinians caught entering the Jewish state from one of 16 tunnels discovered so far. And Palestinian officials are accusing the Israeli army of shelling a hospital. The conflict has now turned into a humanitarian crisis, with the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees reporting at least 85,000 people living in 67 shelters, mostly at schools. Later, we'll talk to a spokesman for Israel's Ministry of Foreign Affairs and an official with the Palestinian Authority. But for more on the conflict, we begin in Tel Aviv with CCTV's Stephanie Freid. Stephanie, thanks so much for joining us. First of all, as the death toll continues and the escalation, we are hearing that some international airlines, including US airlines, are cancelling flights to Tel Aviv because of rockets landing near the airport. With that in mind, give us the latest on Israel's ground offensive and any chances of a ceasefire?
Well, Nathan, twofold. I did just get the report as well that U.S. Airways and Delta have suspended their flights to Israel. That's an FAA order over concerns of being hit essentially by rockets. Some rockets flying near the airport. I can testify personally to being en route from the airport just yesterday and having to stop on the side of the highway and seeing a rocket intercepted right overhead. Of course, rockets fired are non-discriminating, and so they come in. Certainly the United Airlines, the United States-based airlines are concerned, and so they've been given the order they're halting for the meanwhile those flights. Regarding the situation on the ground, I just came back from the border with Gaza. It's rough. The fighting is ongoing. Gaza is covered by a blanket of thick black smoke. We are seeing tank movement on the inside. We were pretty close. We could see what was happening. We could see the soldiers moving on the inside. The shelling, the firing, the flares, the helicopter gunships. No, in short, there is no sign, visually or otherwise, with the booms ongoing all the time, shaking the windows even kilometers away after getting out of the immediate vicinity of that fighting. No indication whatsoever that there is any letting up on the situation on the ground in Gaza.
Stephanie, Israel at the outset said this would be a pinpoint operation, but with 600 civilian killed, we've had 30 Israeli soldiers nearly killed, ongoing violence. Has Israel underestimated Hamas's ability to keep firing rockets and resist this ground incursion? And how much of Hamas keeping rockets in civilian areas is also to blame for the escalation?
Well, I think what I'm understanding from here on the ground, Nathan, is that there was somewhat of an underestimation of the weapon stores that are being kept. There's an intricate underground tunnel system that the IDF is uncovering. The underground tunnel system within Gaza, this is according to the IDF, is loaded with weapons, with rockets, with launchers, with operatives, and that is what they're uncovering. And quite frankly, I don't think that they expected, or from what we're understanding here, the fight that they got, especially in this neighborhood where there was such a high death toll on Sunday, and the fighting is still raging there. That's Shajaiya in Gaza. Lots of fighting, lots of opposition coming from Hamas. Also to bear in mind, once the ground incursion goes into the ground on the Gaza side, the Hamas operatives, they know the streets, they know the layout, they know the land, they know where to be. Whereas the army, you can look through night scopes, you can look and you can see from drone activity images, but that's very different from being on the ground in someone else's quote-unquote neighborhood. So pinpointed perhaps, but I think they ran into more than they were expecting.
And Stephanie, just quickly, can you bring us up to date on the 21-year-old Sergeant Oren Shaul, the Israeli soldier confirmed captured by Hamas? What is the latest, and does this change the dynamic? Has he become the bargaining chip in this war?
Bargaining chip is probably a good word for it. We heard word of this since Saturday. No knowledge of whether he's alive or not. But there is sort of a code, an ethical code, as with the U.S. military, leave no man behind. So the conventional wisdom is that if he is in the hands of Hamas, Israel's not going to get out until they get him either alive or they get his remains. So that certainly ups the stakes and ups the ante quite a bit.